Today I want to shoot into a video on the topic of what it means to be addicted to lack and what it would mean to re-addict yourself to actually arriving and re-addict yourself to having every single thing that you want. Now, the reason that I say this is if you do an audit of how your mind is working day to day, you're probably thinking a lot about the gap of where you are now and how frustrated you are that you don't have exactly what you want now. And you're thinking that this is motivating you to get to the promised land. You're thinking, okay, if I want to have better social relationships or be better socially, I want to have more money, I want to have more energy, I want to be happier, I want to be in a better life situation, I want to have cooler friends or be dating someone who's better. You're thinking about this all the time. You're thinking this is actually moving you towards the goal, and to some extent it is because it's better than apathy. But what I'm going to explain in this video is that it actually becomes an addiction. You get so addicted to this identity of lacking, and it becomes something that you resonate with at such a core level that if you actually have something put into your field of perception that would help you to arrive where you're not always pursuing anymore, but you're just arriving and things are just coming to you and you're just in this upward vortex of awesomeness, if you are addicted to always lacking and to always chasing, the problem is that when something actually comes up for you that would help you to get to the promised land, you can't even perceive it. You can't see it. You can't resonate with it. You'll self-sabotage against it. And so what I give in this video is a series of exercises that you can do to actually start arriving now. So if you're curious what those exercises would look like, I can tell you right off the bat that I've been working in this field for 20 years. I'm 42 as of recording this. I've been doing this since I'm 22. I've seen people on the way up and I've seen them on the way down. And I've seen thousands and thousands of cases at this point. We've actually taught live events in 265 cities, 75 countries around the world, hundreds of thousands of people face to face and millions online. And so at this point, I have seen so much, and I can guarantee you that you are so addicted to chasing and to someday arriving that you're going to have to re-addict yourself to actually arriving. And when you do, it's going to change the way that you perceive the entire world, okay? And it's also going to make you start having a lot more fun right now. So I'd recommend that you go through this video all the way to the end. You take it very, very seriously. And in addition to that, when we want to talk about arriving, if you're serious about arriving right now, what I've also done, and this is brand new this week, this is a brand new announcement, is I've created a brand new course that is completely for free. And I did this because I wanted to get you up to speed very, very quickly. So this video is very, very advanced and really, really powerful. But what I've done in the course is I've actually broken down the core fundamentals of what it means to have ridiculous social skills, so where you could walk into any environment, you know exactly what to do. I've covered that, so you don't have to rely on crutches or be nervous or push through all these weird emotions, but you just know exactly what to do from point A to point B. I've also put in the course what it means to actually make a ton of money and what it means to be able to control your own economy to where you're not stuck in beholden to some weird boss and you're stuck in the same city, but you can actually travel around the world and do what it is that you want to do and do something you love. I've also included what it means to have a ton of energy and how not to be in this weird energy scarcity. You might have noticed with me, I have so much energy, it's like my hands are shaking, I'm talking quickly, I'm thinking quickly, because I'm so jacked up on energy, and I do that without any weird Adderall or caffeine or things like that. I drink a green tea here or there if I want to get crazy and crunk. But that's very rare. I'm not drinking any caffeine right now. And I want to also show you how to control your own state. If you want to get it to a point where you're not sitting there in this state of lack, if you're not sitting there in the state where you don't know what to do and you want to get to the promised land very, very quickly, click the link below and go through the entire course. It's completely for free. What I want you to do when you sign up for the course is I want you to sign up for a free phone call. And on that phone call, this is going to prepare you to go through an entire process that accompanies the course, or get yourself out to a free event. The free events are absolutely amazing. I do them in LA, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, the big markets. I also do the medium-sized markets, Philadelphia, Boston, DC, Seattle, Miami, Austin, Texas, Houston, Dallas, cities like that. I'm actually be doing all of Florida this year. So make sure that you click the link below and go sign up. What you're going to be doing is just putting in a little schedule for what it means to do a quick phone call. And in that phone call, we're going to take you through an entire process that's going to solidify every single thing that you learn in the course. It's also going to prepare you to come to a free event if you want to come join us on that too. Click the link below, enjoy it very, very much, and enjoy today's video, which is going to change your life in a profound way. I think this is going to be one of the best days of your entire life. And enjoy. This idea that your life is going to get sorted out is basically designed to get you not in the present moment and basically to put you in this sort of social hypnotic trance. So an example would be, you might remember a video that I did maybe 4 or 5 years ago where I basically, whined and moaned about the fact that people keep saying to me that I'm going to be a billionaire, and it annoys me. And anytime someone tells me I'm going to be a billionaire, it annoys me. And anytime that someone tells me they're going to be a billionaire, in 99.9% of cases, it annoys me. And does anybody remember why I said that? Anybody remember? Because when you say you're gonna be a billionaire, you never make your first 100K. Saying that you're gonna be this millionaire or billionaire is usually an excuse not to go from 20K to 50K, 50K to 100K, 100K to 300K. So what you wind up seeing is that this weird ephemeral idea in your head blocks you from ever being happy. You'll see this even with couples where they're always annoyed at their partner because they have this weird vision of this perfect partner that's gonna stare in their eyes all day and worship them like they're a god or goddess and be this perfect attentive person while being super alpha and a little bit of a challenge and so on and so forth. And they never really enjoy who they're with. You'll see this with couples based out of Los Angeles. Almost every couple in LA that you see, they're breaking up. In New York, they're breaking up because they're just so egocentric. They're so delusional that they never wind up getting anything. And so in the process of saying, I'm never gonna settle, I'm never gonna enjoy, I'm not gonna deal with this or that, they wind up alone and they wind up with nobody. Or people talk about being millionaires and billionaires and they never get to 6 figures. I'm gonna explain why in detail. I'm not just gonna make that claim. I'm not just gonna throw that out there and gloss over it. We're gonna fine comb in detail why that happens and how that becomes a distraction. So basically what's going to wind up happening is that you wind up glossing over the details and nothing winds up happening, okay? So here's my first proof. Everybody ready for the first proof? Okay. So my first proof that I'm going to give is that most of you here, you believe that you want to become a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever you think you're going to become because you think that you're going to have this really cool life, okay? So you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to go do all this cool stuff. What I'm going to predict is that in reality, there is so many cool things right in your city that you could be doing for free that, a lot of really rich people actually contributed to, or people that pay taxes contributed to, or that's just in nature or whatever, and that you're already not doing. Now, I'm going to get you to begin to audit this, and it's weird because this is going to be a seminar where I'm basically going to get you to do very, very simple things that really aren't that cool. And here's what's weird about it. Normally when you come to a seminar, you'd rarely come to a seminar like this and the speaker's saying, stop talking about being a millionaire, stop talking about being a billionaire, we're going to talk about going to the park. You ever seen a seminar like that? Forget the billionaire thing, let's go to a park. Why don't seminar teachers ever say that? What do you think?
Doesn't make them money.
You're not going to fill the room like, in this seminar, I will make you take a stroll at your local park. Okay? It's not a commercially viable subject matter. Not only that, but the weird thing is, if I start telling you to begin by taking a stroll in the park, you will begin to look at your phones, you will begin to tune out, you will begin to lose interest, and the reason why is because it's real. The reason why is because you'd actually have to get present. The reason why is because you'd actually be taking that first small step to actually becoming a multimillionaire or whatever it is that you're trying to do with your life. And for that reason, what you've got to understand is you don't really want the things that you say that you want. You're addicted to your misery. You're addicted to your small paradigm. You are literally playing it completely safe. And so whenever somebody comes and gives you the real advice, you tune it out. How do I know this? Think about the dating advice that I gave over the years. You ever have it where maybe you could show a friend, say it was 5 years ago when I was very forthcoming about my dating advice when we lived in a different society that wasn't a communist society. And so imagine that back then you would show somebody one of my videos, right? And those videos made it very, very clear, let's just say, on how to be successful in dating. And did you ever notice that many friends that you had would just tune it out immediately because it was almost a little too real? You ever heard David Chappelle? He had that one skit called When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. You remember that? Like, that should really be called the title of our company. Like, When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. That's what we should call our whole company. So our company really is like When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. If you show somebody how to actually become a millionaire, they'll get mad. If you show somebody how to actually get better in their social life or dating life, they get mad. If you show somebody how to actually be happy, they get mad. They don't want to be happy. They've got parasites on their brain and on their consciousness that have hijacked their brain. You all have it and you don't even know it. I have it too. We all have it to different extents. I'll talk to you about that today. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. And so when it comes to really breaking out of the kind of loop that you're in, we've got to begin to fine comb what that loop is, what weird needs that it's creating for you, why you're stuck in it, and understand that I've been coaching this for 2 decades. I've not only coached this for 2 decades, I've held the hand of many, many people on their way to becoming multimillionaires. I've done it directly and publicly with people. I have done it behind the scenes with people. I have helped little guys that are 5'1" or 5'2" have incredible social and dating lives. Things that you would think could never happen all the time in my world. And I want to bring you in that world. But we've got to start getting real and getting grounded and getting out of this ephemeral BS. Repeat this after me, ephemeral BS.
Ephemeral BS.
Say it again.
Ephemeral BS.
Louder.
Ephemeral BS.
Louder.
Ephemeral BS.
Stand up and say it. Again. Ephemeral BS. Ephemeral BS. Okay, have a seat. Now sit down. So, understand that most of what's in your mind is a bunch of ephemeral BS. It's a bunch of lies that you're telling yourself. These things are never going to happen. You're totally full of it. And it's all things designed to hold you down. Another way to know this, okay, one example I gave was the dating advice stuff. Another example that I would give you is that it is very, very easy for you to watch some crap like TikTok or pop culture or clickbait. But as soon as you were to actually read a book that would really make you money, your mind will tune it out. Your mind, basically you have this kind of range that you're allowed to live in psychologically, and whenever you go outside of that range, you will begin to get annoyed, you'll begin to tune it out, you'll begin to get fidgety, you can't focus on it, and then you'll put all your attention on a bunch of garbage that is going to do absolutely nothing for you, but keep you a battery in the matrix. Now, let's go into a little bit what it was that I was saying regarding a walk in the park. What did I mean by a walk in the park is the first step in becoming very, very successful? Here's what I mean by that. For most of you, if you walk in a park, you're going to be staring at your phone. If you walk in a park, you are going to be complaining about your life. If you walk in the park, you are going to be talking about other things that you're hoping for or afraid of in the future. You can't just walk in the park. Now, if I were to offer you a $100,000 Rolex watch right now, or say that you could go to the park and be present to the moment for half an hour, I would just do a spell on you and you'd be present to the moment for half an hour. What do you think has more objective worth? Not subjective worth within the market, but what has more objective worth? It's absolutely the walk in the park. The Rolex watch, while being a subjective worth, because, you know, they limit the supply, Rolex is big on that now, they limit the supply on it, other people think cool things of you or whatever. The Rolex is very much that same idea of an abstraction. It's this thing that you think that you want in the future that becomes an excuse not to be happy now, not to be present now, okay? I'll go buy a bunch of Rolexes just so that someday when I say that, I'm not like somebody who people think, you know, can't afford it, making an excuse. You should be able to buy any Rolex that you want, but at the same time, you shouldn't be using that as an excuse to project into the future. There's an entire market of this, okay? This huge market where they will sell these really, really expensive items, and those really exclusive, expensive items become an excuse to always put off being happy, because you tell yourself, I'm going to be happy when I get the house. I'll be happy when I get the car. I'll be happy when I get the significant other or the dating life, right? So it's anything to not be present. Anything at all. Meanwhile, something like a half-hour walk in the park where you could actually be present to the moment, because you can't do that, that is the creation of God. You could see more value staring into the little veins in a dead leaf than you can with just some trinket created by other human beings. Let that land for a second. There is more value staring at your hand. Pull your hand out right now. Look at your hand. Okay, there's more value staring at the little lines in your hand. Look deep at it. Look at it. Okay? And staring at that, and really like look at the little hairs on your hand. Take notice of what your body's even made of. Do you understand how disconnected most of us even are from our bodies? There's so many things that I can't even say here about health and nutrition and recovery and our body's ability to take care of itself that I can't even go into, that if you're not aware of your body, you can't even enjoy the benefit of that, okay? People are so disconnected from their bodies and what's healthy and so on and so forth because you're always in this trance of ephemeral BS. So the first step that I want you to do is I want you to be able to just go to a freaking park and actually be able to enjoy it. Because if you can't enjoy walking through a park, why do you think that you're magically going to enjoy it when you have all this cash? Again, many of my friends are people that are mega rich. I'll be sitting up in huge mansions up in Beverly Hills. You have a view of the city, and they're just complaining with their spouse, and they're whining the same way that the most poor person in the world would be whining. There is no difference at all. It's always the next million, the next person, the next thing, the next job, whatever it is. I'll go to Hawaii. I spend a lot of time in beautiful, luxurious places. You go to Hawaii, and you'll see people in the elevator screaming at each other when you're at the hotel. You butted in front of me. You're just being annoying while they're in Hawaii. Imagine what they were thinking. Imagine this. While they're making their plan to go to Hawaii, what do you think they're saying? What do you think they're saying?
It's gonna be amazing.
This is going to be amazing. This is going to be awesome. It's going to be so cool. And then when they finally get to Hawaii, they complain about the same things because the human brain is running mostly on autopilot. We have various different emotional addictions. They go to Hawaii, they'll still stare at their phone, they'll still complain, they'll still do the same crap. There's a great movie called The Beach with Leo DiCaprio. It covers this a little bit. People go to Thailand just to eat McDonald's. It's amazing. Then he decides he's going to drink snake blood and he has a big adventure. So go watch that movie. It's amazing. But you see the idea. So you think that you're going to be happy in the future with this ephemeral happiness, and what happens is, let me talk a little bit about it. As a marketer, and I say this as a marketer who's done over 100 million in sales, I've been attached to that. Basically what you do is if you actually talk to the person about really succeeding, they freak out and they run away and they don't buy from you. But if you talk about it in these weird ephemeral cartoonish terms, they're actually a lot more likely to buy. That's what you've got to understand. So this was a weird thing where for me, because I'm committed to the artistry and the craft and the transformation above the actual cash, even though I did do well, but many of my marketing friends, you think 100 million is a lot, most of my marketing buddies are not stuck at 100 million. Most of them are doing hundreds and hundreds of millions, and they've got money going through the pipes like crazy. So many of them would actually come to my seminars, and they would see me keeping it real, and then they would see me wind up doing a couple $100K in sales at seminars, and they'd actually come to me at the end of the seminar. They'd say, that's so crazy. You just kept it real and they still bought from you. That's so crazy. The way that I did this over the years is that I do videos that are meant to prime your mind and meant to adjust you to reality and meant to prepare you to win so that by the time that you would get to a seminar, you can even hear that. But most of your friends, if they come to a seminar like this, they start to freak out, it overwhelms them, they run out, they lose their minds because there's a parasite on their heads that wants to stay in this ephemeral world of never being happy. We'll go in later about why that occurs, so just kind of go with me now, okay? So the very first thing that I want you to realize is that even though you have this fantasy about being super rich and having this super awesome life, I bet you haven't even taken the time to audit what is good in your life right now. So simple examples, I live in Los Angeles, beautiful place to live. Everybody lives somewhere different. Many of you don't live in LA. Let's take LA as an example. Okay, so you live in Los Angeles. The average person in LA, anybody here from LA? We have any LA people in the house here or no? We're in Miami right now. We've got one person from LA. Okay, so not too many. The average person in LA, they live in a city. What are some things that you know that are good in LA that you could just go do for free? Let's just start from ground zero. Want to get mega successful? We start one step at a time. What are some cool things to go do in LA?
In-N-Out Burger.
In-N-Out Burger. What else we got?
Take a drive.
You could take a drive. What else we got? You got anything for me?
Malibu.
You can go to Malibu. Okay, you ever been to Malibu?
Yes.
Very cool. Okay, so for most of us, we think that LA just has that. Now I'm gonna name some things in LA. Are you guys aware that the very biggest tree by volume in the world is 3 hours from LA? Do you guys, anybody here know the name of it? Someone know the name? It's called the General Sherman. Did you hear that from me when I talk about in the past? Yeah. I bet you did. Okay, yeah, so the General Sherman, biggest tree in all of LA. What percentage of people in Los Angeles that all want to be rich and they're miserable and they're waiting to be happy? You've got the biggest tree in the world. You didn't go see it yet. What percentage of people in LA do you think have ever seen the General Sherman? Not that instantly makes you happy. It's a big tree. I get it. But like that said, like that's pretty cool. So what is it that how many people in LA do you think have ever been to General Sherman? 10%. Not 10%. I love your optimism. Who said 10%? I love your optimism. No. Like 0.0001% even know what the General Sherman is, let alone they drove a couple hours to go see the General Sherman. How many of them do you think even go to the beach in Santa Monica? How many of them do you think even go and see the world-class Malibu? How many of them do you think drive out to, say, Big Sur or see the Bixby Bridge on the Pacific Coast Highway? How many of them do you think go out to Yosemite, which is one of the most incredible parks in the country, which has all these incredible mountains and they're carved out and it's jaw-dropping and you literally talk to God, but yet they're just sitting there looking at their stupid internet doing nothing? How many people do you think understand that there's like a little mini Greek island that looks like San Francisco and Greece had a baby called Catalina Island that you just drive to Long Beach 40 minutes away from LA proper, and then you can go to like almost like what's a miniature Greek island? How many people have gone to the multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar, whatever it is, Getty Museum, or ever went to I don't know, say the Griffith Observatory or things like that? How many people, you ever heard the album Joshua Tree by U2? You ever heard of that? Okay, Joshua Tree by U2. How many of them do you think ever even went to Joshua Tree, which is what they named the YouTube album over, and it's super cool. And there's this giant sound bath, weird alien thing there, and Palm Springs is there, and it's where they do Coachella, and there's amazing things there. This is all for free. All free. It's all free. And yet you're waiting to be super successful in order to start having fun. And like most of the same things that you do if you're rich were the things I just said. And yet you haven't done those things yet. So again, it's always an excuse. It's always some excuse to wait to be happy. And so now you're sitting there on your, millionaire stud Instagram channel, and you're looking at these images of like Tom Brady and the soccer guy and Warren Buffett, and you're reading your quote. And I like those too, and I think it's a better thing to look at than just crap, and it's very inspiring. I'm not against it. But what winds up happening is you wind up focused on that. And the reason why we focus on the Tom Brady meme or we focus on the Warren Buffett meme is because it becomes this thing that you never have to actually do. There's no accountability. You're not going to be Warren Buffett. You're not going to be Tom Brady. And yet how many, seminars like this, would they ever say that? Literally people, half the seminars out there, if you said you're not going to be Tom Brady, they walk out of the seminar. But you want to know why they're walking out of the seminar? They're going to say that they're walking out of the seminar because they felt demoralized that they're not going to become Tom Brady. But you know what? Even all the other NFL quarterbacks in the NFL are not going to become Tom Brady. Okay? You're not going to become Warren Buffett. Well, guess what? Even Richard Branson's not going to become Warren Buffett, although I don't really follow their finance that carefully. But you know my point, okay? So they're going to say they're mad because they felt demoralized. In reality, by me saying, yo, you're not going to be Tom Brady, now go to the freaking park, that would mean that they would actually have to begin living and being happy and enjoying life and getting present, and that sick little twisted ego parasite that Eckhart Tolle talks about and is alluded to in more abstract terms in the Bible, that would actually get killed. And that little parasite that is running your brain that needs you not to be present, that needs you to be miserable, that needs you always to be looking in the future, that there is afraid of dying, and as a result, you'll never actually do the most basic level things. So the very first thing that I want you to do right now is to go into your groups right now, hop in your groups, and what I want you to do is I want you to audit every single cool thing within 5 hours of your house that you could drive to. Every single awesome thing that you could do now, which by the way, is basically the same stuff that you'd be doing if you're loaded. Obviously, if you're loaded, maybe you could take time away from work, but in reality, most rich people have a ton of responsibilities and spinning plates, and they're busy too. It's not like you get less busy when you're rich. It's only maybe if you cash out of your company. And then there's all these other hosts of problems that happen there too. So get in your group and talk about every cool place within 5 hours of where you are. Because what this is gonna do, here's what it does. It trains you to begin living life. It trains you to make happiness real and to get out of this ephemeral BS thing that you put in your head. And there's gonna be other layers to this that we're gonna go, this is just the first layer. We're gonna go very, very deep. But the very first thing I need you to do is get out your phones and go through every single thing that is within a 5-hour drive of your house. And what I'm gonna get you to do is I'm gonna get you to begin to knock these off and to begin to actually do them. And what I'm gonna explain later is first what you're gonna find is that you make the plan to do it, it doesn't happen. Then you're gonna finally fail a bunch of times to make it happen and audit why that happened. And then you're gonna go, and guess what's gonna happen when you go to this really cool place? What do you think's gonna happen? You gonna have fun? No, you're not. You're gonna be freaking miserable because you're gonna stare at your freaking phone and not enjoy it. And then you know what starts to happen? You're like, well, why do I even want to go do all this stuff anyway? Because whether I'm looking at the General Sherman tree or just looking at the internet in my house, I kind of feel the same anyway. So why do I even want to go do this? I might as well just stay at home because I don't feel any better. In fact, the planning and preparation and transportation time to go here caused me more negative emotions than if I would have just sat at home. So I might as well just sit at home. Which of course means that you are a battery in the matrix. It is a slave mentality. It is not a way to live. And you will live and die having lived a very boring, unremarkable, lame life. So this is actually training you on this. And we're gonna go a lot deeper on this. We're gonna go a lot more into your life's purpose and what it means to live a good life. And it all sounds cool, right? In the meantime, just shut up about that and start breaking down what is actually cool to do in your neighborhood now. In my case, you know, for many, many years, I'd always find the best clubs. I'd want to meet the coolest people, go to the best parties, go to the best restaurants, best spas, you know, meet the most interesting people, whether that was business entrepreneurs or people to date. And I went out and I really, really did that. And, you know, if you've watched my Instagram stories over the years, you might have seen me at, you know, cool parties and cool restaurants and doing cool things and always active and always experiencing life. I've always done that. And then this year what I did was I got into actually seeing the outdoors. And I spent about 270 days in the outdoors this year. And what wound up happening is I wound up seeing most of the country. And I'll get in more detail in a minute about what it is that I learned from that. But again, stop what you're doing right now and begin to audit every cool thing that you can find on search engines or whatever it is in your city. Begin to write it down, and we're going to talk about what it means to begin to knock that off. Let's get it going. Let's get some powerful conversations going. Let's go. Let's go. Get out of what?
Federal BS.
Pardon me?
Federal BS.
I can't hear you.
Federal BS.
I still can't hear you.
Federal BS.
Okay, I just find what you repeat a lot, you remember, so I just want to hammer you all to remember, okay? So going from that standpoint, notice that it's like, well, someday, all this stuff's gonna happen. In the meantime, my life sucks, but someday, shut up! Your life is awesome starting what day? Today. What day?
Today.
What day?
Today.
What freaking day?
Today.
Good, okay. Okay, so your life is good starting today. Notice all the things that you could find that you're not even doing and you're putting off doing. Look, we in every city that we go to, there's so many thousands of people on our email list, and they hear that we're coming from, oftentimes for completely free events, and yet the average free event just has a few hundred people in it when there's thousands and thousands that are aware that it's happening. And look, I'm not saying every person on the planet has to come, but these are people who liked what we do enough to sign up on the list and watch the videos, and they still couldn't come. And then often they literally will see this in their email, and then I go out after and I'll be approached by 200-300 people over several days in the street, and they'll say, wait a minute, I think I heard about that free thing you did. And I'm like, yeah, it already happened. And they're like, could you do like another one like later? And I'm like, bro, we're in Carolina now. I didn't come here for 20 years. I came here one time. I'll be back in like 2040. And they're like, no, just like another one like now. Because their mind couldn't make it real. And so it hid from that event, because it's like when keeping it real goes wrong, their brain knew on some level that if they would have come to that free event, if they would have actually met guys like myself and my team in person, if they would have been around incredible people to network with, they know exactly what would have happened, which is they'd be pushed to wake up, they'd be pushed to have an awesome life, they'd be pushed to get out of the ephemeral BS, but it was a little too real, and that's when keeping it real goes wrong. And so they hid from it, and they're in their little ephemeral BS lie of a universe looking at this, and someday they're gonna just jump in their stupid little metaverse, and they're gonna sit there floating around in their VR, and they're gonna lose their soul. But while they do it, they can be a great battery in the matrix. We'll get into that later. So, okay. No, I'm just kidding. That won't happen. I mean, just because like one of the biggest companies in the world changed their name to Meta, which never happens, a company that big would change their name, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, guys. Even though the biggest company almost in the world changed their name to Meta, no, don't read into that. Don't believe that you're in some ephemeral BS world even now. Don't think anything of that. Don't become introspective when you see that. Just drink the Kool-Aid. Drink your little Kool-Aid. Shut up. Put the piggy ball in your mouth and oink like a piggy. Give me a good oink like a piggy. Just give me an oink like a piggy. What do you got? No, like that. Yeah, show me you're a piggy. Show me you're a piggy. Just show, come on, show me. So I say that to crack you up a bit, but also to hammer it in your mind and to anchor it home, because there's a lot of information, so I want you to remember that. I want you to have it anchored when you see somebody addicted in the ephemeral world, just to think of that oinking sound in a whole entire room and be like, oh, they're like a piggy. They're like in the S&M thing, it's like they're getting whipped and stuff by the S&M master, like, yeah, govern me harder, daddy, and all that stuff that we've seen since 2020. So coming from that standpoint, realize again, the mind is in the ephemeral world. It's going to hide from anything real. So the first thing to do to begin to train yourself off of that is to start to pick things that are actually awesome and just start doing those free things that are awesome rather than looking for the paid thing. Did anybody ever experience it when you're younger, that you'd almost rather drink Orange Crush than fresh squeezed orange juice? You ever have that thing? That whole thing of Orange Crush instead of a fresh squeezed orange juice is the same principle. I remember one time I went to this restaurant called Rainforest Cafe. You ever been there? Yeah. Okay, it's a cool little restaurant. I like the concept. But the reason why Rainforest Cafe, you're more likely to do that than to go on a real African safari is because if you look at a bunch of plastic little animals that are cute, like a symbol, that's not gonna make you get present. But if you really go to South Africa and you go out to Kruger Park or Sabi Sands and you go watch a lion kill an impala, which is a bit gruesome and kind of messed up, it is nature, you would be forced to confront reality. So everything that we're doing, whether it's hiding people from death, or whether it is living through a television, or whether it is living through the internet, it is designed to hide you from reality. Did any of you even feel that way here being at this event after maybe watching me or other people here for many years online? And then it feels very kind of electric and alive being at this event. Did anybody here notice that? Yeah. Does it feel a little bit weird when I talk to you in person instead of looking at a video screen? For sure. Does it feel a little bit like you're in the movie Toy Story and the toy's talking back at you? Okay, I understand how that feels. It's a trippy feeling, okay? You know, I'm a fan of Tim Pool and Luke from We Are Change, and I went on their show. Luke's in the back right there. And literally, I remember, like, you know, them talking to me. It's a very trippy feeling because I would watch their content, and then all of a sudden they're talking to me and asking me questions in front of 30 or 40,000 people live, and I'm just like, like that. You even see at the beginning of the show, they ask me what I do, and I'm just like, stuff. Yeah, like I'm in the same thing, right? It's that you become a spectator to life. So what I'm saying is we're trying to break out of that spectatorism, break out of that voyeurism, break out of just looking and do anything you can to just make it real. Say the word to make it real. Say that. Make it real. Make it real. Okay, it real. Good. Now the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to think not just about things that are local to you that are easy, but in the next exercise, I want you to think about your personal meccas. Say that word, personal mecca. Okay, so if you know this idea of Mecca, it's a voyage that people of Muslim faith will go and do, and it's a really big deal and a really life-changing moment if you come from the Muslim faith. Well, I want you to think about what are your personal meccas. Maybe it could have been coming to this event, or, you know, the other trainings that we do. Maybe it could be going to Greece or going to Rome. Maybe it could be going to the Nepali coast. A personal mecca, the way that we're going to define that are things that are actually hard to do, things that require a lot of planning, and things that sometimes can even require expense. But I want you to right now pick 2 personal meccas that you're going to knock off in the next year. And the reason that you're going to do this, again, is not just to, you know, go there and just kind of like derp around. It's to do the following things. Here's what you're going to notice. First, you're going to notice that it doesn't happen. You're going to pick these 2 things, it's not going to happen. And that's going to start making you aware that these things are further off than you think, because you probably won't even do the local stuff at first. Then, when you eventually feel dumb enough from not doing it, you're going to finally go. And when you go, then what's going to wind up happening is you're not going to have as much fun as you think. You're like, no, if I was in the Nepali coast and the trees and the ocean and the rainbows and the dolphin winking at me and making love in the sand, and you tell you know, just by yourself or whatever. But the point is, it was hard to get there. You had to wake up early. The plane ride took a long time. The person was rude. You couldn't find the food you want. People blew up your phone and annoyed you. You just started talking about the same regular BS that you talk about when you're back home. Emotions emotionally it wasn't even that different than what it is that you experience at home for free. And you start to wonder, why go do anything? Why even go do anything? I feel the same. It's just expensive. It's time consuming to do. Why don't I just become a customer of the metaverse someday and just sit there just derping around in the metaverse? It's easier, it's simpler, there's no chance of injury. It's all just so easily done for me, and so on and so forth. So I want to begin to train you, especially with a lot of what's coming technologically that is really satanic and really evil. Even though it'll have a lot of cool opportunities and there's good stuff in it as well, it's going to be a mixed bag like always. But what I want you to do is I want you to write down 2 personal meccas done for the purpose of A, seeing that you're never going to do it, B, learning that you're never going to do it, which then is going to shock you and begin to rearrange your life to where you could do it, which we're going to go into after this. And then next up, it's going to show you that even when you go, you don't even like it. And this is me really breaking down why you think that you're going to have this perfect life and it's never going to happen. And this is going to begin to get you to confront the details and all the little nuances of why it's not going to happen. And the end outcome of this is that you can actually build an awesome life and have it actually happen. So what I want each of you to do right now is you've talked about what is local to you and making it real and getting out of the ephemeral BS. Next up, what I want you to do is write down your personal meccas done for the purpose of seeing why you failed to manage your time, why you failed to manage your finance, why you failed to get off your butt and actually go because you plan to go and you don't do it. And then from there, why even when you went, you didn't enjoy it, because it's only through failing forward through that process that you can actually begin to learn. Just like when you saw me doing the setup here earlier, remember I described that as ready, fire, aim? You remember that? This is the same thing. Say ready, fire, aim.
Ready, fire, aim.
Louder.
Ready, fire, aim.
Louder.
Ready, fire, aim.
Okay, great. So in other words, make the plan to go do this stuff, goof it up, and then from there we can begin to backwards engineer why. It looks same as I taught social skills over there. I'm like, just get out, approach, meet people, introduce yourself, do your thing, let it mess up, and then from there backwards engineer why. That's better than sitting there for 90 million hours trying to find all the perfect theory, and then you just never ever do it. You're better just get out there and get your elbows in the mud. So get in your groups and let's get some powerful conversations going on your 2 most important meccas, personal meccas that you want to go to. So what you're going to notice, okay, in the coming year is that 99% of you in this room will not go to those personal meccas that you committed to. It's just not going to happen. Most of you won't even go to more than 1 or 2 of the local places. You will just go about your autopilot life. You want to know my biggest problem with autopilot life, and it's just my personal view of this? In my view, what winds up happening in life is almost every single day is this blur that you can't remember. So what I'm always looking to do, and here's one of the greatest tips I could give you out of any content that I have. What I'm always looking to do is to make any day that I can differentiated from the blob. Say the word differentiated.
Differentiated.
From the blob.
From the blob.
Okay, the blob. So basically think of all these days that you can't even remember, where you wake up and you eat a sandwich, and then you complain about something, and then you see what's in the news, and then you look at social media or television, maybe hang out with your friends for a bit, and then you manage something at work, and then you go to bed. And it's just day after day after day after day of these same boring days. And then you sit there, you hit your 40s, and you're like, where did it go? I thought I was supposed to have this awesome life by now, and it's just this freaking blur. Look, no one's gonna cry a tear for me for this, but even for me, I set up my life back in Los Angeles to where I live in a big mansion in the Hollywood Hills. I'm having a very, very good intimate, we'll call it for our censorious YouTube, we'll call it our physically intimate life, we'll call it that, the life of intimacy and connection, we'll call that. And having a lot of really great connections with people and having that going on. And I'm eating in 5-star dinners and I'm shopping on Rodeo and I'm going to the best parties. And that sounds really great, but you want to know something? That becomes the blob. That becomes the blob. That becomes the blob, to where you can't even remember what party you went to or who you went home with or what restaurant you ate at. You're eating at some fine restaurant. You can't remember anymore. No one's going to cry a tear for me for this. But it does. But really, it's a freaking blob. It all gets boring. You think people living in a third world country would hear about your life and not wish they had that? And you got bored of it too, because it's the blob. It's the frickin' blob. It's just another undifferentiated day. So I want you to begin to recognize these undifferentiated days where you are in a slave mentality. And one of the really good comments that we saw on the Zoom, I was just chatting to somebody on Zoom back there. I really enjoyed, really good guy, he lives in Colorado, love what he had to say. But one thing that he had to say, he said, Owen, I don't really care about doing things, I want to accomplish things. What is the upside of that mentality? There's definitely upside, it's not all bad. What is an upside of that kind of mentality? Taking action, what else? Come on, yell it out. Maybe he's fulfilled by what he's doing, doesn't feel a need to go see different things, doesn't care about the blob, maybe he likes the blob. What else? Taking action, fulfillment, building skills, building a future, building up your repertoire of things that you know how to do to offer value to the world and the proposition and the marketing behind it and so on and so forth. A lot of the great things that I have in my life come from a couple key areas. Any of you guys see the summit promo that I did? Where I was up in the Hollywood Hills and I talked about how there was 4 or 5 main things that I did that actually helped me to get ahead. Anybody remember that one? Yeah. Wasn't that popular because of Summit promo, but it didn't distribute a lot on YouTube. But the point was I talked about that. Some of those skills you do build at home. The problem is that while I do believe that's true and very relevant, especially in your 20s and 30s, I also believe that there becomes an addiction to always striving, never arriving. Say that with me. Always striving, never arriving. So it's like, no, I'm gonna build the next thing. 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 And it's putting you in that mindset of always striving. What actually going to see the General Sherman tree does is it forces you to get familiar with actually arriving. It's forcing you to also see reality. Seeing the biggest tree in the world, it stimulates creativity, it stimulates the mind, because you start saying to yourself, wait a minute, the world's a crazy place. These trees are thousands and thousands of years old. This is God's creation. This is kind of intense. Maybe my little blob life there's more to it than that. It's like what some people would report about psychedelics. You don't need to blast yourself with DMT to see a giant tree. You could just go to see the General Sherman, okay? Like there's a psychedelic trance called a real life of things that you can go see when you get out of your basement, okay? When you shut down the crusty keyboard and get out of your basement and go see the world, there's actually a lot to see out there that's similar to the psychedelic trance, but it's called real life. And I guess what I'm encouraging you to realize is that in the same way that a lot of people can't get off the YouTube stupid phone video to go talk to me on Zoom, even though many people are doing it right now, but some people can't, in the same way, you're doing that thing where you're afraid to arrive. It's like, no, I'll just watch the stupid phone video. I'll just watch the stupid phone video. I don't want to actually talk to Owen. I don't want to go in the group. I don't want to actually arrive. And now that's in a very small capacity. Same thing as going to the park. But I don't want to get momentum with arriving. I want to always be striving. I want it always out of reach. And by the way, I learned this where? From years of working on getting better with social skills and dating. And what I found was, whenever I was meeting somebody, if I was always a little bit out of reach, to where they're always striving a little bit for my full attention, I just found that there was a lot more chemistry and attraction there. Much like a cat chasing a laser, but then as soon as the laser stopped, the cat gets bored. I had many experiences where I'd meet somebody and it was just happy and it was easy and it was chill and they got bored. But if there's a little bit of drama and a little bit of chasing and a little bit of striving and a little bit of challenge, that would meet the psyche of how society has conditioned them. You ever notice that? There's somebody you really like and you kind of just put it all out there, say, I'm happy with you. And then they run away. You ever have that experience? Yeah. Part of that is the kind of alpha beta thing, and maybe it could look a bit beta, but it's not just that. A lot of it is actually the psychological condition of the human mind in the social conditioning that we find ourselves in, that we're never actually able to be happy. And so somebody meets somebody that they would actually be happy with, that they'd actually enjoy, and rather than just enjoying it, they run away because they can't just be happy. And that is the psychology that I observed for 20 years working on this stuff, working on social skills, working on dating. And rather than just going, oh, pathetic, ridiculous, why are they doing that? I put the mirror back on myself. Like it says in the Bible, don't look at the chip in your brother's eye when there's a plank in your own eye. I started to wonder, maybe I'm doing this. Am I doing this? Am I doing the same thing? Am I not able to arrive? Am I always putting things off? Am I always waiting to have that awesome life? What am I doing? Why does it look like this? So I want to begin to train you to be an arriver, not just a striver, but to actually arrive. Here's why I say this. It's very, very important that I want you to understand. The reason that I say this specifically is because what's going to happen, here's the key to the whole thing, okay? Here's like the Rosetta Stone to everything that I'm saying. What happens when you're addicted to just striving is that you'll take all this action like a hamster on a hamster wheel, but you'll do self-sabotaging maneuvers to make sure you never arrive. Okay? So you're gonna take all this action, flurry of action, all this stuff, but you never actually arrive. Look, me and my buddies at the back, we got a good friend, right? He's a very good friend, one of the most talented, amazing people in the world. He's always working, he's always building, he's killed it. But we say, you know what? We're out together. Let's go to Shenandoah National Park. It's about 45 minutes from his house, or I don't know what it is. Not too far off. But he found a reason not to do it. Do you know what Shenandoah Park is? Shenandoah, it's a national park, state park, whatever it is, right? Shenandoah. Just a beautiful park out in Virginia. But you're going to notice that people struggle to go to Shenandoah because then you wouldn't have that mindset of always striving and striving and striving and striving. It's like the cat that chases the laser pointer. It's hard to actually be happy when the laser stops. But what happens is that we wind up picking fights with the people who could help us. We wind up breaking up with people who would actually be really good to date or have a relationship with. We wind up putting things in our body that are actually harming us. We wind up being unable to focus on a book that would change our lives, and we just wind up reading a bunch of crap. And almost all of what you see on social media is geared around this. It's basically just a bunch of things to monopolize your time, burn down your energy, your time, and burn down all of your opportunity cost. So once you understand that and you begin to see it for what it is, you've got to train the mind to get out of the ephemeral BS and start actually arriving. So like I said, first step, find, 10 or 15 or 20 really, really cool things that you could go do for free or cheap right now, close to you, and start knocking them off. By the way, even if you didn't become a millionaire from this, best year ever either way, right? So either way, you're gonna win from this. From there, pick a couple personal meccas and then just go and do those things, okay? And like I said, first, you're gonna procrastinate, you're not gonna do it. Next up, you're gonna go, finally, hopefully anyway, you might not even, most of you actually even won't, but some of you will go, and you're gonna see that you can't even enjoy it because you're always striving, and it's almost like it's too bright and too beautiful and too just amazing, okay? I'm gonna tell you a quick story about when I first realized this, by the way. So there's a place called the Nepali Coast. If you're watching this on YouTube, literally, you should probably go and look up the Nepali Coast of Kauai. It's where they shot a lot of Jurassic Park, the King Kong movie, directed by Peter Jackson. It is probably the most beautiful place in the entire world. And I can remember I went there, okay? I go to Nepali Coast National, or not the National Park. It's a hike in, it's about 11 miles on the side of cliffs. It's completely stunning, it's completely beautiful. Do we have a way to put that even up on the screen, Nepali Coast? Or I don't know if we do. If we don't worry about it. But, maybe we could do some tech for tomorrow to do that kind of thing. But it's basically the most beautiful place in the freaking world. And you go out there and there's no cell phone, and it's so beautiful. And you know what it makes you realize? My stupid little ego is gonna die someday, I'm gonna die someday, and this is gonna be here for many, many years after I'm gone. And it forces you to get present to the moment. And I can remember one time, I went there with a group of my friends, and two of my buddies, one was Julian, all that they could talk about was dating. And on this stupid empty beach with nobody there, they just started roaming up and down the beach looking for people to approach and say hi to. We'll go with that word, approach and say hi to. So they just kept doing that. I kept talking about business and complaining about people on my team that were frustrating me. My other buddies also kept talking about business. It was like we were there in the Nepali Coast, but all that we could do was just recycle all these same patterns. Then what happened was because that parasite wasn't being fed in my brain and my ego, I started getting in a weirder mood and started thinking, I've got to go home. And then I started thinking, I got to get out of here. I got to run away. And I actually hiked out of the Nepali Coast several days early, leaving my friends there, ran back to the city, got back to work, and was just super pissed off. And that was because it was so beautiful. It was so awesome. It was so incredible that the parasite, that egoic parasite in my brain, couldn't handle arriving. I had to just keep striving. You keep saying to yourself, hey, I'm gonna go to Nepali Coast. I'm gonna make all this money. I'm gonna go do all this. I think my business was probably doing 4 or 5 million a year back then. I could go to Nepali Coast, but I couldn't psychologically handle it because it meant that I had arrived. It meant that I'd have to get present to the moment. It meant that I'd have to acknowledge the impermanence of my ego in my life. It meant that I would have to blend into the whole and realize the truth of life. And it was too hard, and I just talked about business the whole time while my friends roamed around this empty beach looking for people to approach, like kind of on autopilot while complaining and then running home like a little punk. And I reflected on that. That was maybe 2013 or 14. And I reflected on that for a couple of years after. And I said, next time I go to Nepali Coast, I'm going to go here and I'm just going to take it in and it's going to be beautiful and I'm going to enjoy it. And I noticed that even when I did, I struggled to do that because we are on autopilot. We are in an ephemeral BS. So that was the big epiphany, was realizing I wasn't ready to arrive. And what I realized over maybe half a decade further, or 7 or 8 years since then, was that not only is that going on, but in the same way that I kept talking about things that annoyed me, and in the same way that I walked off the trail, I also am self-sabotaging in my day-to-day life. And that's what all of you are doing. You ever go to the bar club and you meet someone you're really attracted to and they like you and you mess it up? Because you're not ready to win yet. They're super into you and then you just start shaking and being weird and just putting your foot in your mouth. And it really sucks, by the way, for the opposite sex because they're like, how come I can just never meet a guy that really likes me? Guys are either super weird or the cool ones don't like me. It's because the ones that like you freak out and they wreck it. But then what happens is that you just wind up looking like some weird creeper. So to them, you look like a weird creeper because you goofed it up. And then the ones that wouldn't be that happy with them, they're super chill and relaxed, but then they just kind of bounce out of there when they're done. So then it's like this weird cycle that humans are in with our relationships. So you've got to be at a point. You know what I've noticed, especially with dating? When you get to a point that you're just ready to be happy, you're just ready to let the wind land, and you're like, you know what, I'm awesome, I'm worthy, I'm cool, and you can just go and say hi to someone, look them in the eye, be authentic, be yourself, so to speak, and just chill and vibe. It goes amazing. But you've got to be ready to let it land. You've got to be ready to win. It's the same thing with some of these big product launches that I've done. And I can talk to you guys. Some of you join my mentoring or in my mentoring. We talk about product launches. I've done millions and millions of product launches. And again, you've got to actually focus on what matters and not all this dumb crap. I also witnessed this in my company because I held the hand of a lot of people into becoming multimillionaires. And I would watch how some friends of mine and brothers of mine, I'd hold their hand and help them make millions of dollars. And what would happen is as soon as they start, it was almost like every time they start banking a couple million, you'd notice they start complaining all the time and creating these stories. And the stories are partially true, I guess you could say, but largely it's just them focusing on the negative and nothing positive. Like, yo, 2 years ago, you're flat broke. You're now making 7 figures. Why are you angry all day? Why are you just always mad? Why do you feel like some kind of a victim? I'm here to help you. And what I realized was it was the same thing that I was doing on the Nepali Coast, but now I'd become the Nepali Coast. I'm the one helping them to go through that process. And that's why for me, as a person trying to teach you how to be successful, I get unnerved and get frustrated and vent like I'm doing today because I realize that for many of you, I can hold your hand through the process of getting better social results, financial results, health, wealth, relationship, higher purpose, whatever it is you want to do. I can walk you through that process. But if you're not ready to win, if you're not ready to let it land, if you're not ready to arrive, if you can't go to the park and just look at the frickin' trees, then you're not going to be able to handle making millions of bucks and meeting the perfect person or people or traveling around and doing cool things. Because if you can't just go look at the biggest tree in the world and say, yo, this is kind of cool, you're not going to be any different with these other things. And you're going to self-sabotage it like I did at the Nepali Coast. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did to force myself over this in the past year, and I'm going to get you to do another exercise and talk about this. So what I did to break out of this, let me tell you phase 1. I said to myself, in the coming year, I'm going to go do a bunch of cool stuff. And what do you think happened? A lot of that cool stuff I said I was going to do didn't happen. Now, I've already been going out to cool restaurants and parties, dating different people, having fun in LA and in some of the big cities that I travel to. But there was all these other things that I wanted to go and do, tons of them. I wanted to go see Montana. I wanted to go see I'd never even seen the Grand Canyon as a 40-year-old person, okay? In the new video series coming up, I actually shoot it right around my birthday in the Grand Canyon. I've never been to the Grand Canyon. The freaking Grand Canyon is 6-7 hours from LA, and I've never been there. So many cool things I've just never done. I was always striving. So I said, I'm gonna pick a bunch of things I'm gonna go, and I didn't do it. Finally, I said, no matter what, come hell or high water, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start doing these things, okay? So what I did was I noticed that I kept procrastinating, and so one of the things that I did that helped me to get over it that was kind of crazy was a big one for me was I kept delaying going out in winter. I'm Canadian originally, and literally I love winter sports. I love being out in winter, and for 20 years, I didn't go out and do anything cool in winter in the outdoors. Imagine growing up in Canada doing winter camping, and you don't go out for 20 years to do cool things in the outdoor. What a waste that is, right? It's kind of crazy. So I did something that made sense for me. It may not make sense for you, but it made a lot of sense for me, and you're gonna come up with your own version of this. So again, this made sense for me. It may not make sense for you, but it made sense for me. What I did was I bought enough winter gear that it would sting and make me feel dumb if I didn't use it, okay? So what I did was I went and bought over $10,000 in winter jackets. Okay, I went on a shopping spree. Montclair, Canada Goose. I just bought every Montclair and Canada Goose jacket I could want, which at that price of those ones, 5 of them. No, I'm just kidding, but it's kind of like that. And yeah, I basically just bought a whole shelf of winter jackets. Now, why did I have to do, in my case, as a 40-year-old business owner, why do I have to do over $10,000 in winter jackets for me? Why for me?
Skin in the game.
Because I need skin in the game. It's got to sting, okay? So if I just go buy one winter jacket, that could be what I do to take my friends for lunch. So I've got to make sure that I feel stupid. I want to get it to where people come in my room and they see all the winter jackets, like, wow, you must be really in the winter sports. You must be out there. Well, tell me all these great adventures you're having out in nature in winter, Owen. And I'm like, I just bought that. I'm stupid. And, it just never happened. Right? So I wanted to make myself just feel extremely stupid if I didn't go out and do it. So I bought every single jacket, boots, pants. In Canada, we call it a toque. You guys call it a beanie for some reason. I can't figure out. And yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Okay, we also have this thing called poutine. We'll get into that later. And so basically, I went and I bought that. Now, what do you think I wound up doing that winter? You think I did anything cool? I went to Yellowstone National Park. I got a private tour back around bison and all these incredible animals. I spent weeks out in Yellowstone, out in Montana. I was in Lamar Valley in winter. I went and saw all these incredible hot springs. I went to Jackson Hole. I went actually skiing again. I went to Yosemite National Park in the middle of winter. I went into Sequoia National Park in winter, which is one of the most beautiful things you see in your entire life. Biggest tree in the world covered in snow. It's like this snow-capped mountain. I had one of the best, incredible experiences of my life. It was truly remarkable. One of the best things I ever did. All that it took to get me over the hump was just to put a bit of skin in the game and throw my hat over the fence. Say that word, throw my hat over the fence.
Throw my hat over the fence.
So basically just make you do it. I remember I took my first ever program with Mystery, and I blew every penny that I had to do it. And then afterwards, people would be like, hey, do you want to go see a movie? Do you want to go out? I'm like, man, I spent way too much cash on that program with Mystery. I'm going out to the club, so you can get out of here. I'm just going to the club, right? And it made me actually use it. Now, then what I did was in summer, I thought that I could repeat that same experience. So I wanted to get more into hiking in the summer. So what I did was I didn't want to buy this in hiking boots because it's too expensive, but I went and I bought about 12 or 13 pairs of hiking boots. Now again, I'm not saying that you have to do that. Why did I go buy, because a lot of people, I don't think that'd be a good fit for you. Why did I buy 12 or 13 pairs of hiking boots? Why did I do that? I spent 8-9 hours researching hiking boots, and I bought all those hiking boots. Why did I do that? Because again, I want to look super duper stupid so that when people come to my house and they see this rack of the most incredible hiking boots that are totally clean, not dirty at all, and I just look like this total poser, I want to look dumb so that way there's leverage on me to make sure that I'll go out hiking. Okay, I've got some of my friends back here, and you can even ask them. The first thing I did when I came to visit them on the East Coast, let's go hiking. I got into hiking. So that came from me getting skin in the game and throwing my hat over the fence. I did that. So I wound up hiking all through the mountains in Hawaii. I wound up hiking all through bear country in Montana. I had a giant grizzly bear walk by and look at me in the eye, and I've had several bear experiences like that. And I didn't know that bears were out there in Montana, and no one really told me, and it was terrifying. I took my kids out into Maine. We were hiking up the Beehive in Acadia National Park. Where weren't we? I don't know, we were basically everywhere, okay? I traveled about 270 days this year. It was completely insane. Had the most interesting, compelling year of my life. You know what I said? I said, I'm not just gonna keep striving and striving and striving. I'm actually going to arrive. I'm gonna do things. I'm gonna learn how to enjoy it. After I did that and I had an incredible year, I said, you know what I wanna do? I wanna get into skiing. And look, guys, I'm 42 years old. I have been hustling since I'm 9 years old. I was doing paper routes that were making me $1,000 a month at 9. And that was many years ago. So that's like a 9-year-old making like $3,000 a month or something if you count inflation, especially in this day and age with all the branded stuff. So if you say that basic idea that what you have is, I said to myself, what am I gonna do this winter? I'm gonna go skiing. And I went to almost every ski resort in the freaking country. And I didn't even remember how to ski. I only skied one time the year before at Jackson Hole. And I skied and I skied and I skied. And I taught my autistic son Vincent how to ski, which was incredibly tough. Anybody see that on Instagram? Me teaching my autistic kid how to ski? Very tough. You know, he's lying on the ground and he doesn't want to get up and he's screaming at me and he just sits there eating snow. Just basically just lies on the ground and eats snow. I'm like, please get up, please. He won't do it. And I sat there for about a month just yelling at him and pulling him up. And now he can ski double black diamonds. It's completely insane. He's not great at it, but he can make his way down. The reason why that happens is not because I put him on a double black diamond, but sometimes in ski hills, you're on a blue and then it becomes a double black diamond. They don't tell you. And then he just has to make it down and he's not too thrilled about it, but he will make it down, okay? And my son Dylan, he got good at skiing really quick. My kids are off skiing with my baby mama right now. It's super duper epic. They love it. My autistic son Vincent, he doesn't even speak that well and he just comes up all day. He's like, do we go ski-ting? And he just says this again and again and he's really good at it. So I went skiing all over the country. Now, when you hear this, you know, it doesn't really sound a lot like a self-help course because it kind of just sounds like a lot of consumption, right? It's like, okay, so you gone YOLO now, Owen? Like, what's happening, right? But what I wanted to do was I wanted to break out of the paradigm that I was in because I could recognize that there was a lot of self-sabotage. Even though I am an expert in not self-sabotaging, I am a human being. You are a human being, which means by default, you're self-sabotaging. You already know right now that if you were to just cut out 99% of your thoughts and actions in your life and just focus all of it on like 5 things, you already know how successful you'd be. And even at higher levels, you will continue to self-sabotage. You'll see yourself doing it. So part of getting out of the self-sabotage is actually arriving. It is getting accustomed to arriving. It is getting accustomed to enjoying. Just like if you send most people my old school OG content and it shows it's like a little too real and it shows exactly how to do it, they won't watch it. Just like if you show them, you know, a book on how to make a ton of money, they won't look at that, but they'll sit there watching crap. We're all doing it because we're obsessed with constantly striving and not arriving. So even when you say, no, I just want to accomplish things, I'm not going skiing, I'm not going to go do all that stuff, I'm just a hustler, I'm just grinding. You're self-sabotaging. Everybody who I coach, even the guys with hundreds of millions or billions in revenue, I've got to coach how to self-sabotage. They're all self-sabotaging because you're in this ephemeral BS world. So the next thing that I want you to do is I want you to think about things that you could do to throw your hat over the fence to make yourself begin to go and do some of these things. What would you have to do to make yourself go and do some of these things? What could you do to force yourself to take massive action now and go and do some of these things? That's what I want you to do, okay? So start writing that down now. What could you do to make yourself go do all those cool things locally? Make yourself go and do all of those personal meccas. Start writing that down. How do you throw your hat over the fence? How do you make sure that it happens? How do you get psychologically accustomed to winning, arriving, actually being happy, and not making it some ephemeral thing in the future to where now you're like that couple whining and complaining to each other in the elevator in Hawaii, or like me running off to Pauly Coast, and instead you're someone actually winning, not self-sabotaging, but winning and being adapted to that. What are some other things that you guys have done to just force yourself to get better at something or to do what it is that you want to do? Can you name anything? Get a partner to do it with you it's called an accountability group. Say that word with me, accountability group. Accountability group. Outstanding. Hire a mentor, say that.
Hire a mentor.
Mentor other people, say that.
Mentor other people.
Okay. What are some other ways you find that you can get skin in the game? Anything come to mind? That's a pretty comprehensive list, but if anyone has any other things, let me know. What would it be?
Be sad about your current position you're at.
Okay, you know what? That's a great thing that he said. Okay, the man behind the mask is quite brilliant for this moment. He said, get more sad about the position that you're in. And, you know, that's actually a fair point because in many ways, I had to actually create a narrative in my mind where I'm saying to myself, you know what? I'm 40 years old. I've never been to the freaking Grand Canyon. I'm 40 years old. You know, I haven't been whitewater rafting. I'm 40 years old. I keep saying every year I'm going to go skiing again, and I haven't skied in 20 freaking years because I'm hustling. I do like this guy a lot, but you know, I'm hustling like Gary Vee, and I'm telling myself a story like that. I love Gary, but you know my point, right? So that's what I want to say to you is, and in many ways too, you know, I would kind of fall into that whole thing of like, you know, if you're doing something you're passionate about, you never work a day in your life. I absolutely believe that that's true, but it also meant that it limited the bandwidth of cool things that I went and did, and it kind of just limited it down to me doing super amazing seminars and to me visiting this kind of same 20 or 30 cities around the States, but that was all that I did. So let me kind of cap this point with something that I noticed from driving the country, okay? And this was an incredibly powerful experience. What I wound up doing was I wound up driving most of the country in the past year, and I did it by car, okay? Now, what I found was I wanted to do it by car because I wanted to see what the world looked like, and I just wanted to get a sense of like what world we live in and what it felt like. And what I found was it had that same grounding aspect to it. So let me give an example here. Think about all the days in your life from the blob where you wake up and it's just another non-memorable day. Now, if I told you that I drove from Los Angeles to Montana in one day, do any of you in here feel, like I did for my whole life, a sort of a mental barrier about driving from, say, LA to Montana? Does that sound like a long drive and boring and it would hurt your back and you just can't do it? Anybody feel that way?
Oh, yeah.
I felt the exact same way. I truly did. There was no way. I barely want to drive to Vegas from LA, okay, like in the movie Swingers or something. I definitely did not want to drive to Montana. If you would have said to me, you know, do you want to drive from Miami all the way to Louisiana or something, I would have said no. All of that stuff. I just would never ever want to do it, okay? I certainly didn't want to drive from LA to Colorado to go skiing or things like that. And then I thought about this for a minute. I kind of thought a little bit more abstractly. And I said to myself, Owen, think of all the days that are just this immemorable blob that you can't remember, that, you know, you didn't even use your day properly. What would it mean to sacrifice one of those to do the drive from LA to Montana? And what would you see in that time period? You know, LA to Montana is about 16 hours. And what would you see in that period? I drove from LA to Montana. Let me tell you what it looked like. You don't even realize this. Has anybody here ever seen Zion National Park just in pictures? You ever seen the Grand Canyon in pictures? Okay, when you drive, first of all, the drive from LA to Vegas is very beautiful, okay? It's like the desert. But then after that, what happens is that you actually wind up going through kind of like this extended Grand Canyon universe all the way to Utah. And what it looks like is like you know how you've seen the Grand Canyon? That's sort of the jewel and the best part of the Grand Canyon. But there's actually miles and miles and miles of kind of like a 4 out of 10 Grand Canyon that goes for like a couple hundred miles, or I don't know what it is. It's a long time. So while a 4 out of 10 Grand Canyon is not the ideal, when you're driving through a couple hundred miles of it, or I don't know how many miles, but you know, you drive through it for a while, it's pretty freaking amazing. Yeah. Then you think of Zion. And if you look that up, it's also completely incredible. It's like almost like another variation of the Grand Canyon. Totally amazing. And if you go to Zion, you're seeing the jewel of it, you know, like Angel's Landing and all that. But again, if you drive through it, later parts in the drive looks like an hour of Zion. It's like a 3 or 4 out of 10 version of Zion for many hours, right? That's why that territory exists, is because that's like the jewel of that kind of area or kind of topography. And so what winds up happening, what I noticed was when I would drive up the coast, I would, like for example, I drove home from Oregon, right? And I was gonna fly back. I said, no, I'm gonna drive it. And it's like you're in Oregon, you're on the Oregon coast, and it's very, very green and it's very, very wild. Then you get into Northern California, you drive through the redwoods, then you're on the coast, you go through Mendocino, and then things start to kind of become a little bit more yellow but very beautiful. Then you drive further down the coast and you see the geography changing. And what it does when you see this, when you actually see the geography changing, is that you get out of this weird cartoonish kind of in the masses, battery in the matrix kind of mindset, where you're like, well, this is LA, and then you go in the little tube, the metal tube, and then now you're in New York. Then you go in the metal tube, and now you're in DC. Then you go in the metal tube, and now you're in Atlanta. Then you go in the metal tube, and now you're in Seattle. But really, you're living through the television. Really, like you don't even really know how big the country is. Does that make sense? You don't even really know what the country looks like or how big it is. So the problem is you're living in this sort of mental abstraction. You're living in this kind of cartoon universe. But when you've just driven the country and seen what it looks like or done that in the world, you actually know what it looks like and it becomes real to you. And so now when you're watching the news, you've been everywhere. You notice when you watch the news, like, I don't know, say that you saw something in Albuquerque, New Mexico or something, right? You've never been to Albuquerque, you know, that like Breaking Bad or things like that, right? And you watch that, it kind of feels like this cartoon, right? But when you just realize that, like, literally, if you live in LA, you could just drive to the land of Breaking Bad. And literally, you would see yourself leaving California and going through Nevada and going into New Mexico and, you know, maybe through Arizona, depending how you go. And you see it, and you're like, oh, this is where it is. Like, this is real. And what it does is it has this very grounding effect. It's this very, very grounding effect. And it makes you more connected to the earth. And I know that's very woo-woo and very abstract. Like, it's gonna connect you to the earth, man. Yeah. And I get that. And I would think that too if I were you guys. But it really does. It really does connect you to the earth. It makes you realize what this country is. It makes you realize who lives in it, what it looks like. It also makes you realize, A, how incredibly beautiful and lucky you are, and how awesome it is. Almost like having like this gym membership that you pay half your money to in taxes, and you've never even seen the damn gym. It's really what's been happening, right? See the freaking gym, that's the most expensive gym membership of your life, gun held to your head to give half your money for it, and you've never even seen it. But then in addition to that, it also makes you realize how small the country is. I mean, it's kind of like a big village. You literally can get from one to the other, from the south to north in about a day. It's kind of crazy. Like, America, it's just a thing you drive in a day. It's not this like abstract thing. So it gets you more grounded and it gets you out of this fantasy world in the mind. And then when you get more accustomed to being out of that fantasy world, you're more likely to go make millions of dollars or to be very successful because you stop self-sabotaging. You stop living in this ephemeral BS world in the mind and you start living in reality and getting grounded to the earth. So that's sort of what I'm trying to get at you here, okay? Now, this was the first lesson that I wanted to give today, and we're gonna go deeper tomorrow. And I wanted to do that because I wanna go into what it means to live a great life, what it means to make a lot of money, what it means to be successful socially, what it means to do better in health, wealth, relationships, and higher purpose, what it means to get what you want. But I'm starting here specifically because what I have found is sort of, a humble brag, but it's like I'm too successful for my own good. And I wind up creating these like Frankenstein situations where you get somebody to become a millionaire and then they just go on a bunch of drugs. Get somebody to become a millionaire and they just want to go to court. You get somebody to become a millionaire and they just want to burn all the ground. You get somebody to get really, really good in relationships, they start arguing with their significant other. They get really, really good at going out and having casual fun and they mess that up too. They mess everything up. And I'm just sick of people messing up my freaking work. And their work. Little narcissistic. But it's extremely frustrating. And trust me, at the highest levels of success, you will see self-sabotage after self-sabotage after self-sabotage. The Britney Spears thing and the shaved head and the conservatorship and all that, that's the default. That's the default. That's gonna be you. You will literally have your own series about conservatorship. But you know my point. Like, you will most likely fall into that. So the first framework that I'm trying to lay down with each of you now is just simple exercises that you can do for your own awareness to realize how to stop just striving and start arriving, how to allow yourself to win. And I noticed this from years and years of coaching and social skills and just seeing what would happen where, you could get a student to actually learn to get really good socially, to go approach someone, do better, but they're always goofing it up. A person wants to run off on a cool adventure with them, and then they just go, yeah, and they just run away. They go back home together, yeah, and they just run away. Sabotage, 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 sabotage. You teach them everything, they go to the club, and then they just walk to the bathroom. Then they walk and get a glass of water. Then they go check out the club. Now they're ready to say hi. They walk up, they get closer, and they go over here. I'm like, ah! You know, it drives me crazy. And it's because there's like this fantasy world in the mind. Oh, I'm gonna be awesome. I'm gonna do all stuff. A millionaire, awesome, amazing, right? It's like shut up and say hi to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Just shut up and say hi to somebody. Like, don't worry about that. Just, okay, you know, the journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with the first step, is really what I'm saying here. And acclimating the mind to being able to win. So I wanna just start knocking down small wins, okay? Small, simple wins. Okay, and stacking them. So get that in your head now, okay? Get that in your head. And tomorrow what we'll do is we will go a lot deeper on the topic of how to make more money and how to be better socially and how to win. We'll go deeper on that. Oh, you came?
Yeah.
Hey guys, stand up, give him a hand. He's the guy, he actually came here. You gotta video him and you gotta run over there. Yeah, so he actually wound up coming. He was on the YouTube and I just said, just get your ass over here now. So he just came over. Yeah, so, okay, by the way, here, come up here for a second, just pop up here. How does it feel, very quickly, so I was yelling at him, how does it feel to go, just pop up here, right up. So how does it feel to go from watching on YouTube and then just seeing this sort of cartoon abstraction where now I'm literally, bring the camera like right up here, I'm literally here right now in your freaking face. We're sitting here right now, it's real now. What is it? No, obviously I'm being silly, but what does the difference feel like? Can you actually feel like more present or more alert and aware than just being at home like with like, you know, a big spooge on your navel, just like looking at the phone or whatever you're doing? That's what he was actually doing. I just saw him.
The energy, the presence.
Mm-hmm. So feel more, and do you see how I'm saying that like we're not used to this feeling?
Yeah.
Right, we're not used to it. It's like, whoa, it's real. Right, people watch this at home, they're literally addicted to just watching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you come, it's like, it's real, it's real, it's real. Okay, and that feeling of it's real is what it takes, in my view, to make the millions, to do better socially, to be on top of your life, et cetera, okay? So that feeling that you feel right now, when you go crush it socially or make a couple million, that's the same feeling, like, whoa, it's real. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, could you guys give me a hand for running in here too? Outstanding. Thanks for being here, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys soon.